In this video, we will look at 5 questions from Paper 1, Part A. Part A, Question 8. This is a short response question that requires you to make inferences about the text. The question asks you to identify the event that Krakauer's book Into Thin Air most likely describes. You are asked to do this based on the information in the text. This suggests that the answer cannot be found simply by looking at paragraph 8. Also note the words most likely. This suggests that the answer is not stated explicitly in the text. The quote in the question is in paragraph 8, which tells you that the subjects of the book are guiding agencies. Now you know that the event involves guiding agencies and most likely Krakauer himself. Next, scan paragraphs 1 to 7 and look for any mentions of Krakauer and guides. Let's read the first 3 paragraphs carefully. It mentions that in 1996, Krakauer met some climbing guides and decided to climb to the top of Mount Everest. By the end of his trip, 8 climbers had died during a storm. Most likely, this is the event Krakauer describes in his book. Skim the rest of the text to see if you can find any other information that supports this answer. There are references to the tragedy in 1996 in line 45 and the 96 tragedy in line 54. This is then immediately followed by John Krakauer's book, which suggests that the tragedy was connected to the book in some way. The answer then must be the 1996 ascent of Everest that Krakauer took part in and the tragedy that occurred on the mountain. Part A, Question 9. This is a 2-part short response question which tests your ability to locate specific factual information. It asks you to identify the pros and cons of hiring shepherds as guides. The answer line suggests that you need to find 1 positive point and 1 negative point. In Paper 1, the order of the questions usually follows the text. Question 8 includes a quote from paragraph 8. So that is very likely where you should start looking for the answers to question 9. There is a mention of shepherds in line 31. In line 32, they are described as excellent climbers, but sometimes unqualified guides. Clearly, the fact that shepherds are excellent climbers is a positive point, so that is the answer to the first part of the question. The fact that they are sometimes unqualified guides is a negative point, so that is the answer to the second part of the question. Part A, Question 11. This is a 2-part question about the use of metaphor, a type of figurative language. Let's look at Part 1 first. It asks you to find the metaphor used to describe the situation on the mountain after Krakauer's ascent. The question also tells you that this metaphor can be found in paragraph 10. Krakauer's ascent is described in line 40. The situation on the mountain is then described in the next sentence. A metaphor is a word or a phrase used to describe something else in a way that is different from its normal use. In this sentence, the phrase that seems a bit unusual is traffic jam. A traffic jam is a long line of vehicles on a road that cannot move or can only move very slowly. Clearly, there are no actual traffic jams on top of Mount Everest. Therefore, the writer must be using the phrase metaphorically. So the answer to Part 1 is traffic jam or stuck in a traffic jam. Let's move on to Part 2, which asks you to explain the meaning of this metaphor. Knowing that a traffic jam is a long line of cars that cannot move, we can infer that the phrase means something similar here. In the text, it is not cars, but dozens of climbers that are stuck in a traffic jam. In other words, it is the climbers who are unable to move. This is also supported by the next sentence, which says that they couldn't turn around in a timely fashion. So the answer is that, like cars in a traffic jam, the climbers were unable to move. You can use your own words to answer this question, as long as you express this idea completely. Part A, Question 12. This is a proofreading question that requires you to find and correct mistakes in a summary of paragraphs 9 and 10. You also need to put a tick next to the one line that has no mistake in it. Now read through the example line and the first line in the summary. In lines 36 to 37, you can find the phrase, allowed climbers to reach the peak in more predictably safe conditions. This is quite similar to the wording of the first line in the summary. Let's compare the text to the summary. The summary says, more people were able to predictably scale the mountain. However, the text says they were able to do this in a more predictably safe conditions. The point the writer is making is that climbing the mountain was more safe, not that it was more predictable. So, to correct the first line, you need to first underline the incorrect word, the adverb predictably, then write down the correct word, safely. Make sure that it is the adverb safely, not the adjective safe. Let's move on to the next line. Start by reading the sentence that starts in line 1. In lines 35 to 36, you can find the phrase, aided by technology and more precise weather tracking. This is quite similar to the wording of the second line in the summary. Let's compare the text to the summary. The summary says the better tracking of technology also helped in this. However, the text talks about more precise weather tracking. So to correct the second line, you need to first underline the incorrect word technology, then write down the correct word weather. Moving on to line 3, start by reading the sentence that starts in line 2. In lines 39 to 40, you can find the sentence, Krakow, an avid climber, arrived to tell that story. So what was that story? Read the first sentence of paragraph 10. It says that by 1996, one of the world's most remote locales was becoming a tourist attraction. Let's compare the text to the summary. The summary says, Krakow went to Elfres to write about how the place had turned into a destination for climbers. However, the text says, Elfres was becoming a tourist attraction. So now you have the answers to both line 3 and line 4. Line 3 is correct, so you need to put a tick in the box. In line 4, you need to underline the incorrect word, climbers, and then write down tourists. Make sure you use the plural form for the answer to be grammatically correct. Part A, Question 14. This is a multiple choice question which tests your ability to make inferences. You need to choose the word that best describes Burleson's actions during the rescue. You are also told to refer to the information in paragraph 12. So let's look at paragraph 12. The information we can find is that Burleson was awarded a prestigious honor for his part in the rescue effort. Now let's look at the options in the question. The first two words, futile and perilous, are quite difficult. If you don't know what they mean, start by considering the other options. If someone's actions are admirable, it means they are doing something that other people admire. In other words, they are doing something good. We know that Burleson was given an award, so his actions must have been admirable. Still, let's quickly go over the meanings of the other words. Futile means having no purpose because there is no chance of success. This does not describe Burleson's actions. Perilous means dangerous. The rescue might be dangerous, but it is not mentioned in the text. Misguided means wrong because you've understood the situation badly. If Burleson's actions were wrong, he wouldn't have been awarded for them. So yes, option C, admirable, is the only possible answer.